Humane marketers. Sarah Znekrocha here. Welcome to another episode of the Humane Marketing Podcast, a place to be for the generation of marketers who cares. This is the show where we talk about marketing your business in a way that feels good to you, is aligned with your values, and also resonates more with your conscious customers because it's not pushy, ethical, and also beautiful. So if you're a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations around the 7 Ps of humane marketing. And if you're new here and this is your first time, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. You may want to download your one-page marketing plan with the 7 Ps of humane marketing in the form of a mandala at humane.marketing/one page, the number 1 and page. So again, humane.marketing/one page. And with that, with no further ado, let's dive into today's conversation. Hi, Theresa. It's lovely to connect with you again. I'm so
Really good to see
excited
you.
to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's such a timely topic because as we were connected, actually, we need to do a shout out to Will Newitt who
Oh
connected
yeah.
us. So thank you, Will. And yeah, I can't remember exactly why he thought we would, really hit it off, but then when I saw the topic of your expertise, which is visualizing your future self, I thought, well, how timely, because it's a chapter in my Business Like We're Human book, and I think it really is this thing that right now we need to reimagine new things, right? And that has to do with, yeah, the future and with our future selves, but also the future of humanity. So tell us a little, but for you, yes, it's timely, but you've been doing this for a long time.
I
So
have.
tell us a little bit, yes, what it means to visualize your future self, what it means to you, but also how you got into this, like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, well, I've been coaching for 25 years plus,
Wow. Yeah.
and I was in IT. I knew it was not for me. It just wasn't working. I knew there was something more. I knew there was a sort of an essence of me that wasn't being expressed. So, several kind of programs and courses later, I really came alive to that there was absolutely more for me to give. And I came across the book The Artist's Way that many of your viewers may well know. I became a coach and I started primarily teaching that about how to rediscover your self-expression and really be sort of following your true path. But it was a lot around, our creative selves.
Yeah.
And I did that for 13 years, running 12-week workshops, in person, and latterly online and so on. So I became really alive to what can happen when people really reconnect with themselves, their true essence. And often it is a very sort of creative side, right? And go beyond all the programming and the sort of social constructs that we get battered by over the years. And but then, I'd been having a kind of waking dream about this version of me that was living in a fantastic home and that was just enjoying a moment over a cup of coffee where she was sort of taking that all in and enjoying that. And then my family sort of suddenly appeared and we all went away. We were all going out the front door with suitcases because I was giving a speech in Paris. And and this just wasn't something I was going to share with anyone because it sounded a bit kind of outlandish at the time. But it wouldn't go away. This was it felt more like a memory. In fact, nowadays I call them future memories because it felt so real. And it just suddenly occurred to me that I could actually talk to that person in the kitchen, that version of me in the kitchen, my future self. And so I just experimented with that and talked to her, and blow me down, she was answering back and with a lot of really great wisdom. So I knew I was sort of onto something. So I then was grabbing every kind of warm human being that I could possibly find to put them on my couch and getting them to try this visualization that I came up with to sort of connect to that part of, that I knew was inside of all of us, and everybody found a connection. So it was wonderful. And I've been doing it now for sort of nearly 15 years, these visualizations. And there's only been one time when somebody hasn't got their future self. And that was because they'd been frog marched to me by their aunt.
Yeah.
Wasn't a sort of a sort of willing participant. But yeah, I mean, everybody has this. So it's like really very, very, revealing that this is a truth that we all hold inside of ourselves, like who we are able to become if we just relax into our own blueprint. So I liken it to an acorn has the blueprint of oak tree in it, but it doesn't look anything like an oak tree, nor is it the size of an oak tree. But it knows, if you like, to just relax into its blueprint and it becomes an oak tree. And we are no different. We have a blueprint that is absolutely special to us. We're all different. And if we relax into that and let that unfold and really know that that's who we are, then we will become oak tree. So this is a process of getting in touch with your oak tree-ness, as I say.
Yeah. And several times now you said relax into, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe another question is, how is self-visualization different from like the traditional goal setting, right?
Yes.
Which is very action oriented. So not so much relaxing into. So talk about the difference.
Well, that paradigm is about chasing, about tracking down, making things happen. It's about push and shove and all of that. It's about trying to insert ourselves into life. This is not that. This is, as I say, following your own inner blueprint. And it's an inner knowing. So we all have it. And often it doesn't take much for people to admit, yeah, I've always known I can be and do more. And that still small voice inside of us that's calling out for that is your oak tree-ness. It's that part of you that knows what you're capable of, knows what you're here for, and knows what you're capable of in terms of, your being your expanded, fully realized self. And so we're tuning into a knowing. We're not kind of goal setting, as you say, and like aspirationally trying to go for something that may not even be ourselves, right? Like, so people might think, the word is think, right? They might think they know what it is, but it's nothing to do with what the heart and soul, if you like, know.
Well, it's usually the definitions of success that come from the outside in, right? Like the career development that you should have, and that's outside in and instead of inside out. Yeah,
exactly. I use those very words when I also work with organizations. And I use those very words, right? It's not outside in, it's inside out. And obviously in organizations, that is a, completely different way of doing things.
Yeah, I want to talk about that as well, because when you told me that you're bringing this into our organizations, I'm like, wow, this is, it's a paradigm shift, right? That we're completely, unknown territory for organizations for sure, but even for people, I would say, like. And so you led me through one of these visualizations, which was amazing, and I had done it before, and I had kind of transcribed my experience in this chapter. As a person who is actually I'm not necessarily comfortable with visualizing, right? And I told you that, and you're like, don't worry about it. It's like it's more of this feeling. This knowing.
Yes.
And so really that's what came up, right? It wasn't like I wasn't seeing myself necessarily in future situations, but it was more like a deep knowing. And I think that's very aligned with, my idea of of changing our relationship to work as well, which is less about the doing and more about the being. And therefore, if we are more in this being, right, then we need to be less in the doing. So talk to me
Absolutely.
about, what kind of different experiences people have and maybe just explain what it looks like when you do a session like that.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And it's very pivotal. I always set it up with people that you may not see anything.
Right.
This is not about visualizing in a way. I mean, it's
Hmm.
just an easy word because everybody knows what it is. But it's not about pictures. For all that I saw pictures, and some people do, it's really not necessary. What's
Hmm.
necessary is that we're tuning into the way of being, if you like, the essence, the feeling of
Right.
your future self. And if we have that, then we have everything we need to align to your future self. So the way this works is however we are energetically in life is what we attract. So I use the metaphor of tuning forks. So if I have the tuning fork for C, note C in my hand, and I have a row of tuning forks on the table, only one of which is tuned to C, and I ping my C tuning fork, then it's only the C tuning fork on the table that's going to vibrate.
Hmm.
So if we want to become our future selves, and this applies to organizations too, if we want to become our future selves, then we have to resonate at C in order to attract the future self that is C.
Mm.
And
Love that.
how do we align? Well, we've got to know energetically who our future self is,
Hmm.
and then we can align. But until we're, whilst we're in confusion, oh, that person's saying that, society's saying that, my teachers told me that, right? We don't know really what the vibration is that we're trying to line up to, right? So once we're equipped with the knowledge that our future self resonates in this way energetically, in other words, they have these kind of values, they approach life in these ways, then it's much easier to go, okay. And this is why my program is called Future Self Now,
Hmm.
because the only way we can align is in the now.
Yeah.
That's all we've got. So
Hmm.
we have to be looking after, tending to the quality of our energy right now. And is it aligned as much as possible to my future self's energy? And the more I do that, the more I can do it. I mean, we're none of us perfect, right? But the more I can, and the more I'm kind of aware that that's my goal, then the more that's going to come towards us, right? So the quicker it will
Yeah.
come towards us.
Yeah.
So that's the
So
game.
good. I love this image of the tuning forks. And what I thought of when you were explaining that is like it also matters who's around those tuning forks, right?
Right.
Because the frequency or the resonance of other people constantly influences you. And it's interesting because I'm just going through the marketing like we're human program where we're talking about human design and how we are wired. And then this lady is like, well, I think I'm just surrounded by the wrong people. And I'm like, totally, totally true. Like, that's what happened to me when I pivoted the business. And it's like, if you're with the wrong people, then obviously you always feel awkward being yourself,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you need to actually also change the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah. If you know that that affects you, and you're tending to the quality of your energy, and
Hmm.
the quality of your energy is the number one priority, then
Right,
you need to do something about that. Now,
right.
sometimes we don't have any choice because say it's
Mm,
your
yeah,
boss.
yeah,
So now you've got to change energetically about the boss.
right.
Now, it doesn't mean that you stay with that company, like it might be time to go, right? But whilst you have to, what I say to people is you have to change the energy of how you're approaching the boss in order to attract something different from them.
Right.
So, I mean, just a quick example of this is my husband was having a terrible time with a
Mm,
colleague at work, and I asked him to think about the things that he appreciated about that person, and he was like, nothing, nothing's very good about them. But I said, next time you go into meeting, because this person was, being very disingenuous and very critical in meetings and things like that. I said, next time you go to a meeting, just concentrate on the things that you enjoy about that person. He said he couldn't think of anything, of course, at first, but then we went into it because all you have to do is a tiny, tiny thing. And he said,
Right.
well, they're good with their team
Mm.
and they dress smartly. Right. And it sounds ridiculous, but it doesn't matter
Right.
because you can
The energy
imagine
changes.
going in and the energy of that
Mm-hmm.
changes the dynamic immediately. And he
Mm-hmm.
did that. And at the end of the meeting, the woman praised what he'd been doing in front of everyone. It was a completely different.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
also, what happened was 2 weeks later, that person resigned and went on. So, like, there is this concept that you can curate what's around you by how you be energetically, and everything that's not a match to
Yeah.
your energy has a tendency to just sort of fall off. It's something
Mm-hmm.
to put to the test, right? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a fascinating and very deep and wide subject, this thing about how we are energetically and what we
Mm.
can attract, right?
So you mentioned the name of your program is Your Future Self Now.
Now.
When we visualize ourselves, though we see or we feel, well, the future self, right? And so
Yes.
how do we manage the uncertainty or the path from being who we are now and being who we want to be and not get obsessed with this trip to Paris,
Yeah,
kind of
yes,
thing.
exactly. No, and it's a very good thing, good question. And well, one thing is that you can be in touch with your future self, and like this is a conversation you actually can have with your own inner wisdom. In other words, your future self, because this is like the best version of you, the wisest person that you've got at your fingertips, right?
Mm,
And that person would say, "Relax, it's coming."
mm,
And they would say, enjoy your life while you're doing what you're doing. And you are building towards that. And,
yeah,
trust it and relax into it. I don't want you to hurry up and get here. I want you to enjoy the process that's needed in order to become this, right? And
hmm,
so they wouldn't want you to wish your life away.
right,
They want you to enjoy the journey and enjoy the knowing that that is what's coming.
mm-hmm,
And again, if you're chasing, if you're feeling resentful and impatient, any of those things, right, you're now not aligned to how future self does life.
hmm, yeah. Like
So,
I see my future self, or like before we did this session, I was more tuning into my wise woman, and I
right.
like see myself on the bike, and white hair flowing in the wind, and getting my groceries in this little basket in front of me, and so yeah, just like you said, there's no rush, in that picture.
Right.
And at the same time, I'm like, well, why am I not? We had bikes, but where we live in Lausanne, it's very up and down. And so I never used it. And so we transformed them into e-bikes. And now every time I take this e-bike, I'm like, I'm already my future self.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a really good question to ask. In what ways am I already my future self?
right.
So back to that question about the what we see and what we feel.
Mm-hmm.
The what comes in terms of the actual manifestations. Yeah, I haven't done that talk in Paris yet. I will,
Right.
right?
Right.
But the question is much more how much am I being future self now, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm energetically aligned to her, then I don't need that, right? Though that's just a sort of byproduct. Those things are the byproducts, right?
Right.
If you think about it, what are we wanting in life? We're not really wanting the things because we're just conflating what we think the things are going to do and how they're going to make us
Give
feel.
us. Yeah.
So we're actually wanting the feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what we have some power over that right now, right? So we can have the feeling of that. Yes, the manifestations aren't there. And if that's making us feel like we're lacking in some way, then we can ask ourselves, so what am I needing right now?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
That isn't about the thing. It's about the way it makes me feel. Can I bring that to myself that way that it makes me feel right now? The answer is yes. With a bit of, you know, looking around and checking in with yourself, you'll be able to find a way of having that experience right now.
Yeah. Another thing that came up in our little visualization was the hippie picture, right? And I think I
Yes,
was
yes, yes.
mentioning barefoot, and so I'm like, well, I just gotta walk more often barefoot, right? Like that's an easy
Exactly.
thing. And yes, it creates a very different feeling than walking with shoes on. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
exactly.
those
So
little.
there's all sorts of things. I mean, people can go onto my website and download a thing about how to align to your future self. But it
Mhm.
is, you can do it in these little things, like what's their, are you doing the things that they're doing that you could
Right.
absolutely do now? Like you say, like the biking and it
Yeah.
might even be just the kind of tea that you have, or, like, are
Yeah.
you being as abundant with yourself as they are being abundant with themselves, like, and doing that in a, obviously in a way that works, but it's the feelings of it. So yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
if they have a real hippie element that they're really enjoying, how can you have that right now, right? So yeah, I love
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing.
Mm,
Brilliant.
yeah. So the reason I brought it into the Business Like We're Human book is also because I think it's such a powerful tool to get us out of this stuckness in destruction that we are in right now, and
Mm-hmm.
really use it as a tool to reimagine completely, like something that we feel right now is completely impossible that we could ever have or ever live in abundance. And I'm not talking becoming millionaires or anything, but just like feeling peaceful inside and feeling
Exactly.
abundant, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really powerful tool to, yeah, reimagine our life and work differently.
Yeah.
Have you, is that a topic that comes up in your with your clients?
Well, yes, I mean, I'm actually the chair of the Association of Sustainability Practitioners. So I've actually done this work with the board.
Mm,
And it's kind of, I mean, they're a very amazing, hopeful organization who are looking, really future sensing and as I say, in really hopeful ways. But yeah, that exercise with them has, I think, shifted things subtly as we've gone along, is that we have to we have to tune into that version of life and the planet, because if we don't, we're going to collapse, we're going to get overwhelmed, and we lose our agency and we can't do anything about it.
hmm
So another metaphor I use is one of cells in the body. So if you have a body, so that's the planet, and we are the cells, there may be disease in parts of the body, but it doesn't help if all the cells in the body kind of rush towards the disease and get infected themselves.
hmm
We have to have pockets where there are healthy cells that can grow from being healthy. And the more healthy cells there are, the more we can help heal the disease. It's the
hmm
healthy cells that are going to heal.
Yeah.
We can't we can't solve the problems from the energy of the problems. We have to solve the problems from the energy of the solution. So the more healthy cells, human beings, there are in the world, the more we can help heal. So that for me is very, very pivotal. It's the way ASP, the association, works. And I know we're both enjoy the IDG and the development goals and what they're up to. And there's so many organizations and there's so many people out there who are doing great things. We need to highlight those people. We need to stop highlighting what's going wrong, and we need to start highlighting what's going right. And the more we do that, a bit like my story about the colleague of my husband's, right? By
Yeah, exactly. The
he
same
focused on
thing.
what was
hmm
right,
hmm
and there's always something to find, even if it's that the person has nice teeth, right? There's always something. If you focus on that, that's where the healing starts, right? So
hmm
that's why it's important.
Mm. Yeah, I love how you compare the micro with the macro because it's so true. Like,
Mm,
and that then changes the energy of us as change makers because, like you say, if we are not healthy as change makers, what kind of can we really create?
yeah, yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, then we get into force and bitterness and anger, and we lose our agency, and we just join in. There's another, I love, you might have spotted, I love a metaphor, but
Yeah.
there's the metaphor of the well, right? So if somebody's fallen down the well, you're of no help to them just going and joining them at the bottom of the well and
Mm.
going, oh, poor you, right? We can't, that's not helping them get out of the well. We have to
No.
stay above and throw them a line from there. But we cannot come down. We have to stay there. We have to be willing to stay healthy. And it's a brave choice to stay hopeful when everybody keeps telling us that, it's hopeless and it's all going to hell in a handbasket. We cannot engage with that because now we're part of the problem.
Yeah. And that's why I think, just the word future nowadays, it's such an important word to use in
Yeah.
everything.
Mm.
And, of course, especially in your work, but everybody should like make the future part of their work now because that's what we're working towards, right?
Right.
Any kind of healing, change making, consulting, changing, anything like that should all be future oriented. So
Yes. Yes.
it can only be helpful to visualize that future so that you know where you're going towards, what you're
Yeah.
working
And
towards.
to know that there is something to go towards, right? That there is
Yeah.
there is hope, and that otherwise, how can we operate, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Dan Pink.
Hmm.
He did a TED talk on motivation,
Hmm.
which basically comes down to three things. AMP basically is the acronym: autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
Hmm.
So, in order for us to really engage with life and do it well, we have to feel a sense of autonomy, that we're doing things on our own terms in our own way. We have to feel that we're getting mastery. In other words, we're getting better and better at something, that we're growing. And we have to have a sense of purpose, of a sense of that there's something higher that we're working towards.
Yeah.
And that really resonates with me. I think that's absolutely true. And so that the future self work, well, helps with all of that because, autonomy, you suddenly see that future self is doing it in her or his own way.
Hmm.
That it's of real service to do it that way, not to become a clone of somebody else, right? That
Hmm.
the fact that they're relaxing into their own oak tree-ness means that they are being the greatest version of themselves, and that is the greatest gift that we can give, right? That's a very generous act.
Yeah.
It's always good to feel like we're getting better and better at something, and future self gives you that sense of, oh yeah, there is a gap, but that's fun to work on closing that gap. And there's something much bigger at work that my future self is really engaged with, and I can really get behind that.
It's beautiful.
Mm.
How would you say like people can start on their own, kind of just, yeah, I think you said having a conversation with your future
Mm.
self. Would that be the first step, or how would they get started?
Well, it's interesting. Yes, I think if you feel fairly close to your future self, like you can tell that you do have that kind of inner knowing that there is more,
Hmm.
and you may have even had those kind of waking dreams that I've had, then yes, absolutely get in touch with that person and have a conversation with them on paper. You can
Hmm.
lie down and see if you can start interacting with that person. If you're feeling a little bit more confused and lost, it helps to be guided, I have to say. I think
Hmm.
it's sometimes it's just a difficult thing for us to sort of go towards by ourselves if we're feeling a little bit, more out of sorts, right? Because it's about the more we're kind of energetically aligned with our future selves, the more we're going to see them and feel them. So I think sometimes it does require somebody to help you get into that energetic space, right? But,
Yeah.
if you do have a sense, then absolutely you can do that for yourself.
I think maybe like what I used to do a few years back is a recorded meditation that you can find on Insight Timer or Calm or one of these apps.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, the one I used was something about, future wise woman or something like that. So that already
Yeah.
kind of gets you familiar with the topic and
Yes.
makes it then once you do have a guided visualization, it makes it less uncomfortable
Yes, exactly. And you know what
going
you're doing.
into that. Yeah.
I have one too that I can give you the link
Oh,
for as well.
great.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have an ebook as well. So please do tell the listeners where they can find you, your website, and all of that.
Yeah, yeah. So my website is futureselfnow.co.uk. And so you can get in touch with me through there. And as I say, there are some tips and sort of there's a workbook for aligning to your future self in there that you can download. And I have a book, what I call the Future Self Now Playbook, is on Amazon. So you can, if you just look up Future Self Now and make sure you say Playbook at the end of it, because there's another book that comes up quite often, but the Future Self Now Playbook, then that is just packed with like so many tools for aligning to your future self. So yeah, that's and it's very colorful and full of photos, and just as I say, I called it a playbook for that reason, because
Nice.
we have to have a light-hearted approach to life, right?
It's that creative part, I guess, from your
Yes.
earlier years in
Yeah.
business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's true that I feel like if you want to play with the future, you can't do it from the rational mind, right? You
No.
have to go into the other side of the brain. And so I'm sure it helps to have color and images and all of that. Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's as soon as we get into that, it's all about kind of it's all serious and we got to heal, and there's some words that are quite triggering,
Mm,
and you can see the energy that stirs up, and so like now we're not in the energy of the solution. So this is
right.
why I'm
Well, I
highlighting.
would assume also anything that is, the more like I said in the beginning, the traditional goal setting. So if it's results and
Right,
achievements and well, that's all the rational mind, right?
right,
That tries to
exactly.
figure it out. And
Yeah, and
that's not.
that is why we go to the future, by the way. Like who you are is who you are is who you are. You've always been this way. We could argue you were it before you were born, and that you'll be it after you die. We don't, like,
Mm,
because it's energy after all, right?
right.
So who you are is who you are. The only reason we go to future self, the only reason we go to the future is because it's the only place that our brains let us suspend disbelief, to your point, right?
Mm,
And and really get in touch with that part of you. We could get back in touch with that part of you when you were 5 and you were full of the joys of spring and just
yeah,
loving
that's the
life.
inner child work, right? Yeah.
That's you,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
still you. And
Mhm.
and I'm sure there's now times now when you're on top of a hill and you're just in wonder, right? That's the same thing.
Mhm.
It's just harder in the past and in the now to do that with all the busyness and the stuff that's been before. So we use the future only because it's the place we can have the cleanest, clearest view.
Mhm.
So, it's not about chasing, as you so rightly put it, and it's not about trying to get there. It's about who we're being now. We're just highlighting much more who we already are.
Mm, it's brilliant. So grateful for your work. And
Oh, thank
yeah,
you.
like I said, I'm sure it was important 15 years ago, but right now I cannot highlight how important it is. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
definitely feels
you
it.
got
Yeah.
lots of work to do, especially with those organizations, right? Like,
Mm, yeah.
very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, because organizations can get in touch with their values and their essence too, right? And
Mhm.
it's an energetic thing, and it
Mhm.
is a new paradigm, but I think, we'll get there with those
Slowly but
organizations. It's
surely,
starting.
yeah.
Yeah, with
Even
especially with
companies are
work.
waking up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you're very much part of that impulse, so it's brilliant.
Mm, thank you. I can't wait to see you in person in Stockholm in
Yes,
October.
I'm looking forward
So
to it.
until then, thanks so much for being on the show, Theresa.
Thank you so much
Thank
for having
you.
me.
Thanks so much for watching and being part of a generation of marketers who cares for yourself, for your clients, and for the planet. We really are change makers before we are marketers. So go ahead, be the change you want to see in the world. And I hope to see you again next week. Take care.